Alright, should be audible now. I think I'm gonna boost up these. And listening back to some of my streams, I found that it's not the mic quality that's the issue. I think it's just I don't know. I have different gates and filters on for OBS than I do for Discord. And so sometimes it just doesn't really match up. So I need to make sure that everything is going to the correct output here, and it looks like it is. So, how's everybody doing tonight? Oh boy, we got plenty to go over tonight. It's gonna be great. We are so back, in fact. Indeed. Alright, when was my last game? That's the real question here. Oh boy. It's a little bit loud. But everything's connected, so we're good. A reminder, if you are in Durian, I am happy that you're recovering. Flood is awful. So one of my buddies, Kevin Scharf, independent studio director, creative director, just all around pretty smart guy, was dealing with a flood in Canada not so long ago, and that kind of really messed up his plans, and people don't realize how much damage fucking water can do, so it sucks. Oh, I cursed 3 seconds into the stream. Alright, that's a little rough. Who is this guy? E.D. Burden. 40 DMs with Jeffrey Johnson. I was able to replicate the success level and longevity of Chalopolis using the suboptimal tools of 5e. Players with no experience of elite level play, nor Appendix N exposure, and a prepackaged setting. This guy's a wimp. Oh, and he says DMs, he means direct messages. That's the worst part of this. Is the real secret, terrible portion of using the phrase DM for Dungeon Master. It's not just the fact that people get really screwed up. They get tied up in the idea of master. Everything's supposed to be for me. It's this is my game, not the game. That's all bad. Don't get me wrong, but the real problem is that we keep mixing up these different. Yes, turn off now. There we go. Keep mixing up these different, really essential components. They're really essential linguistic tools like DM. Yep, I went to referee for the same reason. We frequently refer to one of the things I'm liking about writing Chilmus Valley and the How to Run section. Speaking of which, well, we're going to leave that for the moment. One of the benefits of writing Chilmus Valley right now, one of the fun parts of it, is writing out this description of the player. When we refer to the players, it's usually either singular or players attending, or the player roster, we'll refer to them as. Very rarely referring to them as the party. When we would refer to the game master, or what people usually refer to the game master, we say referee, but more commonly, referees. We make it plural. And it's just this fun way of reinforcing, I think, somebody's proper place in the game and their responsibilities. Which is good, because we don't want them to think that they have to take on more than they have to. Being a referee is a relatively simple task. Yeah, simple. It's not always easy, but it is uncomplicated. It's that's quite pleasant. Oh, the blinding light of the sun. Perfect. So you're Elfinder General. Nice to see you. Well, you know what? I think the desktop audio on this one does not have the same noise gate as the other, so I could put this like... Yeah, there we go. Alright, cool. So, we got a few things to run through tonight, and I've just been collecting my notes here. Top of the list, I believe, is going to be the content planner. So what I like to do is put out a... Oh, I'm going to have to delete that. Ah, that sucks. Something I'd like to do is get my timeline basically for 2024 together, because I've not fulfilled my intentions for 2023 at all, really. And so I have a bunch of different plans, an ever-increasing list of series attentions that I need to go through, and different materials. Actually, why don't I just stop referring to it in broad terms so I can actually get to it. Okay, I have a bunch of different playlists planned. One of the most popular ones right now is Running the Grand Campaign. And what I think would be fun... Yeah, so Running the Grand Campaign. Initially, when I was starting out with Running the Grand Campaign, I was like, well, I have to cover all of my baselines. I don't really have any other options. I've had to... If I want to talk about kind of advanced refereeing tactics, or if I want to talk about running a game with multiple referees, or running with an entire player roster, I need to cover the conventional stuff first. And that is just absolutely terrible for my productivity for a few reasons. One, I wasn't on Adderall yet. I certainly wasn't on as high of a dose as I am now. But second, I'm a really discovery-oriented creator. Whether I'm making digital art, whether I'm writing, whether I'm recording a video or something, I'm usually hoping to discover something new in the process of creating. And so the moment I have a completed vision of the idea, my motivation to actually create the thing and make sure that other people can share in it basically tanks. Problem is, when this happens, midway through writing something, or midway through going into my art editor, whatever have you, that's usually fine. I can carry on the anticipation and the pride of completed work and say, aha, I'll be able to finish this. This is fine. Unfortunately, if I start making something up beforehand, and I get that completed vision beforehand, then I feel screwed. My motivation tanks. If my motivation tanks before I could actually start writing the script, then it just sucks. I'm not able to cope. Not able to handle it. John McGowan, hey, you've got a fun thing with Rolling Bones coming up soon. That was a hard thing for me when writing my own book on the Grand Campaign. I keep discovering things halfway through each round of edits. John, you should definitely link your stuff in chat. I'm going to add you as a moderator here. Do not let me down. Okay, so for a lot of the Running the Grand Campaign thing, you'll notice that we have a subject of prep. We have the map. We have things that stuff that everybody has already covered to death and that maybe I'll be able to introduce something interesting to it. Maybe I'll be able to introduce something new and fun to the idea. Oh, you know what? If this was on 100, then don't tell me appreciate it. Go ahead and show me your appreciation by linking your book in chat. How dare you? What have I ever done to deserve such disrespect? So, I could probably increase the volume there a little bit. Ooh. Yeah, there we go. All right, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. So, come to running the grand campaign. Prep, the great prep debate was fun initially because people on the pro prep side kept kneecapping me by making incredibly dumb arguments based on prep, like, oh, well, nobody likes random terrain. Random terrain doesn't make sense. It's like, man, this is the most entertaining part of making something. Is I don't want the, if the first floor or two of a dungeon is, if the first floor or two of a dungeon is like really, kind of standard in layout, right? I have a bunch of different variations that I'll use for. That does not help me. The Twitter thing. I said, no, you gotta show me the book, The Living Campaign. Oh, hey, there we go. We'll be releasing very soon. Ah, I see. Very good. Very good. So, I have all these first and second level dungeon maps that are kind of based off like a 5x5 grid, and I'll kind of split up the first level, second level, and maybe like a top floor that actually goes up for the sake of the dungeon. Really good for placing avian critters around. Alright, that's totally fine. Placing more natural critters, more natural wildlife that might not necessarily be dangerous, but is still present and rolled up for the players to make use of, particularly if you have rangers, druids in the party. Okay, that's a kind of prep. You'll notice if you go into Appendix A of the DMG, Gary has prepped several different entry templates for the very start of your dungeon, so that you have a number of different branches. You're not just starting from a room, you're starting from a curated list of entries that spiral outwards. And I said, okay, for a modern audience, no, not just for, I'm not going to fall back on the idea that, the reason why I have to do something that I enjoy and I think is better is not because I enjoy it and I think it's better, it's actually because other people are dumb, and that's why I have to make a counterfeit version of something else somebody already bet. Oh, no. I enjoy the idea of having some curated first and second level dungeons ready for you that then spiral into the more randomized Appendix A style dungeons by just using, one, the room contents generator, and two, using everything else once you get into the exits that go down from the level 2 and potentially level 1, because you could roll up things like elevators and such. So that's entertaining to me. But that's not what people were really arguing about. It's just like, players don't deserve, if you can't handle me at my Appendix A, then you don't deserve me at my prep. Or I can't, what's the point in prepping a dungeon or learning how to do a dungeon if players will go somewhere else? It's like, well, that's... there's so many different priors to work through here that it's almost... Funnily enough, a video is pretty much the only thing that would be worth discussing. Yeah, the video is pretty much the only format in which it would be worth discussing the subject. But I got incredibly bored of it time after time after time because people were just not taking me seriously, or literally, or anything really. my buddies, my bros were not taking me seriously. They were just saying like, oh, well, these guys have dumb arguments, so we're going to focus on that. It's like, all right, well, this kind of sucks. So that was just that was due to a social element. I was so butthurt about it. I just didn't want to touch the subject for a while, except by sniping back and subtweeting back on occasion. I think the last straw, the final blow, the nuclear option was saying, like, comparing the idea that prep is wasted if your players don't go to it, that it's okay to have, it's okay to hear the fire alarm beep on that low battery warning once every 15 minutes, provided that there's no, that you know, or that you're reasonably sure that there's not going to be any fire. If there is a fire, you'll deal with it when it comes to it. So that beep every 15 minutes, that annoying halt to your daily experience and daily enjoyment of life is totally fine. In fact, you deserve that daily halt to your daily experience, because you wouldn't be able to, because you weren't going to replace the batteries anyways. That was a nuclear option, and just nothing. So, exploration. What about exploration versus travel? What about travel alone and exploration alone? So I could rather do an exploration versus travel video later. That's pretty much known to death at the moment. I do have some insights on it, but I've already spoken about them elsewhere. So do I want to take the time to address that subject? Do I want to take the time to address that subject in a way that I think is actually going to be interesting to myself and to the people around me? Because something might be interesting to the people around me, but it might not be. And there's this third axis on which I have to evaluate these subjects, which is what's going to be easiest for me to just get out on a weekly basis. I was doing weekly videos. They were not getting a lot of attention. A lot of the live streams started bringing in subscribers for reasons I couldn't possibly explain to you, so there's that. But the your first adventure video did pretty good. And I think that your first dungeon is also going to be a good video for similar reasons. Because a lot of people, because when it came to the your first adventure video, I kept thinking that I had to create an entire adventure to take people through, when that wasn't really supposed to be the lesson of the your first adventure video. The lesson of the your first adventure video was, hey, you have a set of there we go. Yeah, there we go. People want to know how to start off a grand campaign, and the importance of that video was just to say, hey, you don't need to have everything prepped out ahead of time. You don't need to have everything. You don't need a campaign map necessarily. You don't need the totality or even the bounding boxes of the campaign ready to go on your first session. All you need to do is introduce these nice little archetypical elements, or archetypal might be a better pronunciation, I can't remember, elements of grand campaigns, and make sure that they're present in the first session so that you can spin off and kind of spiderweb outwards as time goes on. And it worked really well. People were happy with it. I thought it was, I think it's one of my best, videos, period, in terms of structure and editing and such. So I want to continue with it. I have this here, I have Adventure Checklist, so I have an abridged version of the Your First Adventure video that I'm gonna upload. So might as well bring that up here. So we'll do YFA abridged. And I'll probably have to do a Your First Dungeon video that's abridged. Which will be good, because if I do your first adventure abridged, and then move on from there, then I'll be able to, that's going to be a short video, because I'm just boiling down everything, trying to get it in really under 5 minutes. All the things that you need to do for your adventure. Okay, you need a town, you need a dungeon, you need to start your players off in the dungeon, you need a few different quests that your players can go on, or not really quests, but objectives that they can be on the lookout for, and which the random results of the dungeon can provide your players with some additional value. When you're generating encounters, try to add a twist to them that gives them some kind of pre-prep a few different encounters, and then add a twist to them that allows you to reuse the encounter later on. And one of my favorite examples in that was, okay, you have two different groups of enemies that are attacking each other. One of them is heavily armored and they have to cross a bridge, and the other one is lightly armored, but they're ranged and they have high ground as well. And so what these guys can do is they can just kind of keep firing down on the other guys, and your players will pop out probably behind one of these two groups. Now it's one encounter, but which one they pop out behind is going to change how that encounter plays out. That's going to produce a different outcome. It's going to produce, more importantly, a different gameplay experience depending on which one. Yeah, I don't need to rely on different outcomes. It's just the experience of going through the motions is going to be different from that doing it this way as opposed to doing it this way. And so if you prep an encounter like that, or if you roll up an encounter like that and then you prep your twist, all of a sudden you don't have one encounter, you have two encounters. So that's an important skill, I think, for referees to have. And I didn't need to do a video on encounter design in order to include that line in there, or to explain it to you here, and I don't need to do a video on it to do the abridged checklist. I can reference, this is why the Your First Adventure video was so important, I can just reference a lot of these in a video and say, I'll get to it later if I think it's important. I actually don't need to do these in a specific order, except for the order that is most conducive to getting a video out every week. Right? So I don't need to follow. I think it was important to do Your First Adventure in the first couple of videos. I think the intro video was important to do first, obviously. I think the definitions video didn't get a lot of traction, but who cares? I think it was fine. And so a lot of these are going to be dependent not necessarily off the. No, I don't want to listen to Down by the River right now. I don't like the soundtrack of Baldur's Gate 3. I'm sorry, but I said it. It's just not. I'm just not as big of a fan of it. Go to our content planner over here. What am I thinking of? So we've got Your First Dungeon. That's probably going to be. No, Your First Adventure Abridged is going to be next. I did prep. I wish I could just kind of like slide these in and out. Maybe what I really need is a Trello board. But those. No, I don't think it will work as well. Actually, I hate Trello boards. So I had definitions. Patrons, that's an interesting topic. I'd like to do something for patrons, because some of these topics were a lot of the arguments have been done to death in a really antisocial and negative fashion. And subjects that I brought up, for a lot of these, I don't like addressing the subject if I basically not just have to do it alone, necessarily. It's okay if I have to do something alone. But if I have to swim upstream against the guys that are supposed to be in my corner for a lot of these, if I have to go back and look at our discussions prior and say, what was I thinking? What are we going through? What output of this discussion do I want to put in? A lot of it is not terribly useful to me. Because in some of these subjects, I'll just get like a ridiculous amount of either pushback or outright dismissal. And dismissal isn't... It's weird to call something like a lot of dismissal, because if somebody dismisses you, then it's generally kind of the end of it. But patrons were one of those. Patrons was the example, the example. I was like, hey, you guys should have some guidelines to generating patrons. I know that you're not into having a monologue about the collaborative experience. Probably not the collaborative experience. No, that's probably the least interesting part of... That is the least interesting part of D&D by far. Yes, we got definitions. That was number 2. And your first adventure was number 3. So just like just like, you don't need to... the game designer can just come up with a scenario for patrons. We don't need to talk about what our baseline assumptions are. We can just... because everybody knows what our baseline assumptions are. So they could just copy what we're doing, and then somebody without your baseline assumptions goes over and copies, or attempts to copy what it is that you're doing, and they have a wildly different experience, wildly different outcome, different process, because they generated something so different. And yes, that is really attractive, except when it blows up for completely preventable, stupid reasons. The example of this is Curator. If somebody had told that guy, hey, patrons do not have 2 actions per day in any of our campaigns. The people who have attempted, when we say always on campaigns, they don't necessarily mean that the players themselves can complete an infinite number of actions from day to day, and the referee's in charge of handling that. That's dumb. There is an economy of attention, basically, that you can take advantage of or not take advantage of, but that you will be forced to respect either way. If somebody hands me a downtime action and I have to ask them I have to play a game of 20 questions, figure out what exactly it is that they're doing. With a player, I just don't resolve the downtime action. I'll get to it at some point. Maybe they ask me during a session, and that makes it easier to resolve. And it's easier to go back and forth and clarify things, but maybe even then it's like, it's kind of past, it'll just be this other time. Because if you're not able to, communicate what your downtime action is, I'm perfectly happy to say, sorry, that time passed you by. I'm going to assume that your character was as incompetent as you are for this purpose, for figuring out what it is that they wanted to do. Sorry. Genuinely, sorry, but I'm not going to give you 6 hours. I'm not going to dedicate 6 hours to this a week for this one player and ignore all of the other players who, for some reason, can't describe what they want to do. That seems dumb. Now, so your first adventure was number 3. Now, are there any subjects in running the grand campaign that you folks are interested in? Interested in watching. So this is going to be YFA Abridged. And 5 is going to be your first dungeon. Because your first dungeon is actually going to be quite fun. Oh, that should be YFD. There we go. 5D abridged. just so we can go over some stuff. I think the abridged, like, episodes, you could call them, are probably going to be really handy. For me specifically, because what I want to make sure I'm doing is, cause like, if I'm having a slow week or I'm not really sure as to what I want to do, given we, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm trying to get at here. I don't know what I'm. So you're gonna say, all right, what have we talked about so far? And we could have a little filler episode, so that I'm keeping to a weekly schedule. And during that filler episode, I can mention things. I can kind of preview things that I would like to jump off to next. Because I'm summarizing everything else that we've talked about so far, I'm probably going to have to mention a bunch of leads that I've buried in these videos that people are expecting to come up soon. And so that was the original purpose of the preview videos that I used to release. Was I thought that if I released a short preview video, that one, it would drum up additional views, and two, it would drum up so additional views, subscribers and stuff, because I was doing a more consistent upload, but people weren't watching them, so it was having the opposite effect. But also, by committing to the weekly preview, it made sure that I was getting some of the work done earlier, basically not doing the entire video all at once. Which meant that if I didn't get it done on one of 3 specific days during the week, then it wasn't getting done that week at all. That was annoying. So we're not going to do that. Yeah, so we have Your First Dungeon Abridged, so who knows what comes after that. I would like to talk a little bit about Warfare. I would like to talk a little bit about maps. I think I have some interesting information to give on those. But maybe not. Maybe, here's an idea. So I have a general kind of idea. I have one video playing called The Story of Every D&D Campaign, which I did as a live stream, a brief live stream, because I was feeling really nauseous and couldn't actually hang. Describing how every D&D campaign was, or my plans to make a video describing how every D&D campaign was kind of like a game of Chutes and Ladders, based off a number of different arguments I had in Discord and a subsequent live stream. And I've done no work on this graphic since, which is embarrassing, but I am in the middle of a move, so everybody will have to get over it. We're back on track now, at the very least. So the story of every campaign would, I think, be interesting, because it would be like, hey, by the way, let's talk about the success. Let's talk about the success curve of every campaign, provided it's going, provided it's a healthy campaign. Let's talk about the kind of like rough narrative track of every D&D campaign, or every campaign writ large. Like, okay, maybe not every campaign goes to a foreign land in the East, especially given that now so many campaigns are too conventional to really deal with that. And a lot of the other, quote, sandbox campaigns, and even some of the people who are currently running RAN campaigns, aren't necessarily going off to the far-off lands because... or aren't providing a meaningful experience of the far-off land because they haven't prepped anything to distinguish it. Alright, that's a little annoying. I could be wrong about that. That's not necessarily true. That could be just that's my first blush impression, so I could be wrong about it. But these are things that feature in most campaigns, so am I supposed to just ignore it? I don't think so. So we got a bunch more people in the chat now at this point, so you guys should say hello. You should say hi. So that's that. I will probably, yeah, let's go ahead and X7 story. Say the story of every campaign. Maybe. Another thing is I would like to do the Dungeon 24. So maybe Dungeon 24 is not that. Maybe the... So maybe the video is not going to be that. Maybe the video is actually... It's Dungeon 24. So I'm going to describe that in a hot second here, and then we'll make 8 the story of... Yeah, we'll make 8 the story of every campaign. Dungeon 24 would be pretty simple. Because if I do Your First Adventure Abridged in there, then I guess say, oh shoot, I feel like I should make a video about Dungeon 24. I feel like I should make a video about Dungeon 24 before anything else happens. I might have to make that number 4. I might really have to make that, yeah, I might have to make that the 4th video. We'll see what happens. There's this opportunity to talk about Dungeon 24. So, what I would like to do for Dungeon 24, because R-Dubs provided a pretty cool description. Okay, so R-Dubs provided basically good instructions for running a campaign. Alright, here we go. We're going to do Dungeon 24. We're going to collect all participants and their posts. We're going to start with a single hex. You do a D8 and D20 for terrain type. You roll on the 1E Dungeon Master's Guide Appendix B for population. You do, yeah, D6 plus 2 on population center. Will avoid populations of 8 or under. Roll on first, yeah. Roll for dungeon types, city and town encounters, terrain types. Use these rolls to build your setting theme. And so, yeah, this challenge is... So we have the Dungeon 24 challenge. You buried the lead a little bit too much, but that's okay, because you have thorough instructions here. So, gameplay, developing your theme, it's basically... The idea is that you're going to play every week, and this is going to be your Dungeon 24s. We're going to focus a little bit more on actually playing through whatever it is that you generate. The problem is, I don't think that's like the purpose of technical challenges like these, right? It's like, hey, by the way, this is how Appendix B goes. You could generate this stuff and then just keep building a map out from there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so, but I don't think that's gonna... I think it's gonna cut it for a challenge. I think the challenge needs to be something of technical instruction that you can repeat kind of on your own, but can be later introduced into the game in a polished state. Because the whole point is you want to get better at, you want to develop muscles that allow you to generate this stuff on the fly, or if you're going to do it between sessions, then you're going to generate it quickly enough that it's not coming into conflict with the rest of your duties as a referee, or as a player for that matter. So, do all that. I think that if we want to do a Dungeon 24 channel or challenge, I think it has to be something that's going to be, obviously it's going to be dungeons, and it's going to, or dungeon focused. I wanted something that was a little bit more focused on hex crawls, but I think I can do both. So we need a technical challenge that people can repeat on their own week to week or perhaps day by day, which we're going to do in just a moment here, just so that I'm not behind. Let me bring up my DMG. Because we are going to go to Appendix B here. But here's where I'm going to need some assistance. Nobody's actually in the chat right now. People are listening passively. I hate that. It's terrible. I've been betrayed in some way. I do indeed feel deeply betrayed. Here's what I think we should do. We should look for... Oh, I don't want images. Why is it always so hard to find things? Just give me all... If I click on projects, I just want to see all of my projects. Alright, see all designs. Okay. It should not be hidden or out of the way. I should just be able to look at it. So... Maybe we'll use a card set here. Hey, Six of Swords, how'd it go, buddy? Exercising the R-Dub's fruits of this Rube, it's the voice. It is true. Exercising the zero prep muscles frees up cognition for the ref to focus the parts that they actually like. I agree with you, but I think that you need to... No. Here's the problem. If you're just kind of... God, I don't want to use an analogy here, but I can't not do it. If you go to the gym and you're constantly injuring yourself because you're just trying to practice being spontaneous and being and knowing what you want to practice using your muscles spontaneously and in high stress situations, you're just going to injure yourself over and over and over again, and you're going to do worse than building muscle. You're actually probably going to lose muscle, if not have experienced some kind of worse outcome. So what's going to happen instead? You go to the gym. The reason you go to the gym regularly is so that when you need to use your muscles kind of on the fly, or in a situation that would normally tax them too much, if you were a weaker man, would tax them too much, and you wouldn't be able to do whatever it is you need to do, right? Carry somebody wounded out of the forest, or carry a corpse out of the forest, or keep a rabid chihuahua from murdering your girlfriend. You need to, if you want to be able to rely on your muscles in the moment to do that, then you need to practice in your downtime in a way that builds muscle, which I think is what John is probably actually getting at. So exercising those, quote, zero prep muscles is good, provided that you're not doing it in session. What you should be doing it is in your downtime. You should be practicing, quote, prepping Appendix A dungeons in the meantime, so that, like, if you get more familiar with the roles, you could just go, okay, I'm going to do D20, I have my... Absolutely not in sessions, that's good. So, instead of doing it in session, where you're like looking up on different tables and stuff like that and doing it constantly from room to room to room, and you're constantly making people wait, which I have done in sessions and does suck. It sucks for the people there if you can't burn through more than 10 encounters in a night. It really sucks if you're burning through only 3 encounters. You're not burning through anything at that point. Just solving 3 encounters in a night, you're not getting any XP from that, especially if you're running around with... What is it, like an 11-person party plus a bunch of hirelings and stuff like that? You're not getting XP. You're not getting loot from that in any significant measure. So the players are just kind of gonna burn out, and rightly so, because you're not giving them the D&D experience. They have the right to the D&D experience, even if they're idiot shitheads sometimes, okay? So what are we gonna do for Dungeon 24? We're gonna make sure that you are working your muscles out in the proper place and time, which will be during downtime. Yeah, we're gonna leave that. I don't know why these two are on it. I don't know if I want to keep them on there. I don't even know if I want to stick with Canva for this one. But I'm going to start off in a year. All right, so Mike Pierce has some some qualifications? No, clarifications. There's a word. So the point is using the solo crawl to just generate the rolls and challenging yourself to the creative build on a multi or weekly basis. Solo crawl is the prep. The table plays after the solo rolling. I consider that post-refinement of the rolls. Yes, I am in total agreement. I did want to involve something like hex crawling. So I think to clarify instructions here, but also definitely a little bit of one-upsmanship here. Dungeon 24 is going to be what? I think I got it. Because, like I said, I want to incorporate hex crawling. I want to make sure that people are doing hex crawling and getting familiar with the hexes in their prep and in their quote, or perhaps their solo play. But at the same time, it needs to be connected to dungeons, because that's the whole point of Dungeon 24. Dungeons are the kind of bite-sized content that it's not taxing or tiresome to create. That was the whole point of the no prep argument. We started today with some rolls that pulled 5 Mile Ruins on a Rakshasa. I can't quite see it because YouTube has this stupid little heart button right next to the pop-out. 100% hex is key. Okay. In on a Rakshasa. There we go. Here's what I want it to be. So I'm going to incorporate it with some of my earlier advice. So for Dungeon 24, you're going to generate a hex with Appendix B. And you're going to create one room. Maybe you create one room. Let's just kind of start listing the components here that I want people to do. I want people to generate a hex. I kind of want them to use Appendix B for it. And I think Appendix B is probably just the best. Yeah, Appendix B should just be the default there. I want them to create a room. I maybe want Appendix A to be involved in that. I would like them to, what does generating a hex mean? Well, you got to get your population. If maybe they're not doing the entire thing at once. We want this to be something that is, quote, feasible for a daily experience. So we need them to do population. All right, that seems pretty reasonable to me. Nope, that's random monster. Nope, 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 nope. I go past it? I did. We have, because we have headers here. If a wilderness expedition moves into an area where no detailed map has been prepared in advance, the random terrain determination system below can be utilized with relative ease for a 1 space equals 1 mile or larger scale. In using it, however, common sense must prevail. For example, if the expedition is in the North Country, the forest will be pine or possibly scrub, while in the tropical regions it will be jungle. Similarly, if a pond is indicated in two successive spaces, the two should be treated as one larger body of water. And feel free to add random terrain as he sees fit. In order to develop a reasonable configuration, in any event, the DM must draw in rivers, large lakes, seas, oceans, and islands, as these features cannot be easily generated by a random method. City rolls, that step on the city tables is a bit confusing to me. The city rolls are motivators to quest generation for me. Okay. Reasonable. Okay, so we're gonna do... also includes a forest. Interesting. Oh, there it is. Again. I don't wanna... no. Get out of here. So we're gonna do terrain. And what do we have after that? We are going to do inhabitation. And that's basically it. They have a type of settlement, and then you have a population. Castle tables, appendix C. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Rolling bandit in city and wilderness with her lair. Yeah, okay. Alright, that tracks. All 3 times and figure out how the parts work together. Alright, that totally makes sense. So we have our base components here. We want to generate a hex. We want to probably use appendix A, use some and appendix B, and we want to make a room for our dungeon, because we still want to connect this to dungeons, because it's dungeon 24. It's not hex crawl 24 or hex 24. So what are we doing this? Why are we doing this? What advice do I want to tie in for the sake of other people? His rules have a cleric charmed by the Rakshasa. That's pretty cool. What do I want to add for the sake of my advice and my buddies and my players? People want to copy my play style. What's something I can use? After the Your First Adventure video, we came together to describe... I can't remember what the context was. It was probably another one of my live streams, but it was so important. It was so just perfect for expanding the scope of the campaign. What do I want to do? How do I expand from one town and one dungeon, etc., to other places? And what I said was, okay, every time you write up a new location or bring up a new NPC, let's stick to location for the moment. Every time you make a new location, you're going to write down a little note or reason as to why that new location is interesting to another faction or NPC on the map. Why would somebody want this? You're going to keep doing that from place to place to place to place. And every time you revisit that location, you're going to write down another note about why it might be interesting to a faction or NPC. And you're not going to follow up on it right away. You're just going to kind of leave it there. Write that note down and say, I think that Blorbo the Wizard is interested in this location because it's also an old Earth missile silo. Okay, and we're just going to leave that there. Blorbo's not going to do anything with that information. He's not going to do anything about it yet. Wait, no. I said, there it is. Okay, I'm not going to. So what you're actually going to write down is a wizard is interested in this location because there is a old Earth missile silo, or somebody might be interested in this location because there's an old Earth missile silo in there. And that's all you need for the details. You might later come back and write a second line about there is a missile in there, but no payload. But somebody could make like a magical payload, or somebody could invent a payload or something. Somebody could make a magic nuke if they wanted to, whatever. Or some other kind of delivery system, who knows. That's might be, when we come back to the location, that might be my opportunity to advance upon the thread. But it's not going to come up in play, or I'm not going to force it, I'm not going to like make it stink about it in play until one of two things happen. One, the thread will become real if I go to another location and I write up a thread and the two connect. So if I have, there's a missile silo here, there's an old Earth missile silo in this fantasy dungeon. Cool. I mark that down. And then on another place, I find this faction has need of a long range payload or something. Or this faction knows of the missile silo and they want it. Then all of a sudden, those two threads are connected, so now that's real. Now that's an idea that's, quote, in play. And this way, every time the players go to different, or venture to different locations, that I'm tying things to the outside, or I'm creating a bunch of loose threads that I can use later, but I'm not worried about right now. And every time they do repeat visits to a single thread, they're sort of signaling to me that it's a good time to start tying them together and introducing them in play. That's a pretty key piece of advice that I gave in one of these live streams, and really needs to make it into a video that people can access consistently, or that's labeled for people to find it, instead of just be, hiding my genius away in live streams like this one. So, what am I going to do here? I think that needs to be the focus of Dungeon 24. I think every time you make one of these hexes, you make a hex. Write one possible connection with a dungeon. Because people just spent Dungeon 23 making a really big dungeon at 365 rooms in it, presumably. So every time you make a hex, you're going to write one possible connection with the dungeon. That seems pretty important. That seems pretty handy. Here's where we need to quantify some of our instructions here. What are we going to do? What qualifies as a connection with the dungeon? And this is where the chat needs to begin feeding responses back to me, so you're not just sitting here passively and leeching off my productivity and creativity. Alright, I need you to help me out here. So I think one is magic items. The hexes people fear, worship, need, or covet. Magic item found in the dungeon. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Seems pretty simple. Alright. What's another possible connection here? Dungeon contains a unit dungeon contains a hex, or the dungeon contains a body of previous expedition. Well, here's the thing. So that's the thing that you could totally do, and is kind of actually in the Appendix A rules, is you could come up to connection to the history of the people. That's interesting. Because you can have rival adventuring parties in the dungeon. You could just kind of meet them spontaneously. What if I said, but the dungeon contains troops a lost or population. Yeah, it contains a lost army or population from this hex. Yeah, we'll just say a lost army, NPC, or population from this hex. Using the map tables here to set up everything would be a solid direction in placement. Yes, I think that's the idea, is because you already have... The idea is you already have something from Dungeon 23, except maybe you don't, right? Because maybe you didn't finish Dungeon 23. I definitely didn't. I didn't even come close to finishing Dungeon 23. I might have finished a month's worth of Dungeon 23 and didn't pay attention to it, which was dumb because I could have just used resources that were at my disposal that I refused to touch for some reason until the latter part of the year. Well, that's my mistake. But probably a lot of people got further than I did. So you're using dungeons or dungeon rooms that you already have access to. You gotta have, if you've been running D&D at all, you gotta have dungeons somewhere. Yes, we're going to assume that we didn't finish 23. And if that is the case, then this process or practice allows you to make hexes, and every time you fill up those hexes, you have a choice to make. Do I go with the room or dungeon that I already made, or do I give myself some lead time for later and make a new room today? The Dungeon 24 challenge is not just going to connect and make use of your Dungeon 23 challenge in order to create like an actual viable campaign. It's also going to, the dungeon contains, so you have the history of this hex. With or explained in this dungeon using John McGowan's suggestion. The history of this hex is intertwined with or explained in this dungeon. That way, if we don't have a population in that dungeon, we can still use that. What is that? Terrain type is what, 1d8? Subtype 1d20. And population. And the whole purpose of the challenge is to find a sword with 19 ego. Yeah, there you go. Thorpe, a hamlet, a village, a town, a city, a castle, ruins. Nice. Damn, there's so much empty space here. God, that gets really annoying. Okay. Yeah, so we have generated a hex using Appendix B. Roll for terrain type. Yeah, you know what? That's how we're gonna do it. Note one connection with an existing dungeon, room, or hex. I'm just gonna say dungeon room for right now. There we go. Get a room with Appendix A if you don't have a spare room ready. Apologize for using AI to generate. I thought it was. I did read some ChatGPT in there, but it's good. It's. I don't know. It can be handy in certain cases. But one of those cases is for quickly generating a response to somebody if you don't want to be super precise about it. Yeah. So. You don't have a room ready or want spares. There we go. I have some funky forest tribal warfare going on. Okay, if the hex has there we go. Crap. Alright, crap. Let's, if you roll or make a new dungeon. You roll or place. If you roll or place a new dungeon on the map. Driller place a new dungeon on the map. You, hey, Doof, how's it going, buddy? Driller place a new dungeon on the map. You must connect the... Your next connection... Your next hex... How do I word this best? It must... See, this is one of the problems. I will just, like... And how's it going, Doof? They worship blinds, they're keeping chaos at bay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. My grammar gets really screwed up if I'm trying to think through a design, if I'm unsure of a design, or... Okay, I'm trying to, like, if I'm, like, second guessing a design, it just completely fucks up my sense of grammar while I'm attempting to write it. So, if you roll and replace a new dungeon on the map, it must connect with your next hex. Okay. So here's the issue I have right now, at this moment. Here's my problem. Somebody's got to come into VC on the Discord to chat with me. I am all sorts of messed up right now. If you roll, there we go. Tribesman Village. Hey, that's pretty interesting. And also, we could probably just put this over here. I don't know what that's connected to. I'm gonna think for a moment and refill my drink. I'll be back. And we're back. Alright, so I'm going to wrap up here. Because I would like to do this. I would like to do this, but I think I need additional 3 results. Let's finish up these 3 results here. Just so people have access to something like a D6 table, I guess. Dungeon contains a lost army, NPC, or population from this hex. Here's the reverse. A villain, or we'll say maybe we'll say an NPC, but maybe we say a villain. Let's start off with NPC and work from there. An NPC from the selected dungeon requires something from this hex. This hex is something of value. Of great import. NPC in the connected dungeon. Alright, there's 4. So I need just 2 more to fix this and complete it. Let's see here. Here's a good one. This hex has something. This hex will prevent or cause an apocalypse. A map-changing event. Or cause a map-changing event. An item, person in the attached, an item or person in the attached dungeon. See, I feel like that one's kind of dog water. Explaining the dungeon, the hex has something of great import to an NPC in the connected dungeon. See, I feel like maybe it's a D4 table. Using the tables, this is typing that you hear, indeed. So, using the tables with the group can be fun. Calling someone to make a roll has a psychological effect of having them own the result, increasing investment. Maybe. Sure. And then on the 60% chance that, for instance, you roll up room contents empty, you've just kind of made the player responsible for the shitty experience that they're engaging with right now. Mostly shitty. Right? Depending, I shouldn't, when I say depending on the game, I mean there are the default lethality of different games really changes absolutely changes the relief or boredom. So the slider of relief to boredom of finding an empty room in the dungeon, right? So rolling a 60% is going to be that 60% chance of empty room is going to be handy regardless of what edition you're playing if you guys are on your last hit points. But whether you're on your last hit points is going to some degree depend on the edition of the game that you're playing. So it can be fun to kind of delegate that work to somebody, but figuring out like how many doors does this room have, you could have done that between sessions. Probably. You probably could have done that between sessions, but maybe not. Like if I go to my maps, okay, here's Mermidia Floor 6, and then I'm going to go to Hidden Bluff, deeper levels here. And so there are, did we come up with any extra material? We did. We came up with another passageway, and then there was a trick or trap in the middle of the passageway, and then there was a chamber room over here that I think was a dead end. And so I did need to roll in the middle of the session because the dungeon really is never finished. I just prep enough levels and enough contents such that players can go through some of these rooms without me having to worry, basically giving myself a buffer of actual play content to keep up the player momentum, player investment, engagement, to not punish them for moving too quickly through an encounter with 30 minutes of prep. And so that's the value of it. Once they chew through that buffer, I can take a 15-minute break and roll up some new stuff. And also, it is kind of handy for them to, at that point, it is handy for them for like, hey, go ahead and roll 3d20, or you roll d20, you roll d20, you roll d20, and then I'm gonna roll like the first 3, and then I'm just gonna collect the results from this person, this person, and this person. I'm not like flipping back and forth, and that might be a little bit more fun and interesting and entertaining, provided it comes up with a real result. And an empty room can be a real result in that instance, but not always for the reasons that we were just discussing. If that happens like 4 times in a row, as is entirely possible, and maybe not necessarily likely, but entirely possible in the context of a game like this, yeah, that's going to cause some problems. That is going to cause some problems. So the reason you do it in the back end in between sessions like this is so you make a nice little buffer for yourself. You could do a little bit of curation when it comes to some of the content. But yeah, that's what we're working with. And so I think for the moment, we're just going to maintain those 4 connections that I mentioned earlier and keep those. And those will be like examples and such. Which contains a lost army, NPC, or population from this. Lost army, NPC, or population from this hex. The history of this hex is intertwined with or explained in this dungeon, and this hex has something of great import, an NPC in the connected dungeon. So I think that, could these be broken up? Dungeon, yes, exactly, dude. Could these be broken up more? Absolutely. I think as 4 example archetypes, they cover a lot of ground, and things that everybody can practically do, regardless of their skill level or relative creativity. And so I guess all that I need to do now is make one. So I'm going to... And that's how we'll finish off the stream. And then I'll add more sticky notes for my different notes list. Stream notes, that's how that's... Okay, cool. It tracks that. And we'll go over ink scripting and stuff like that later. Because maybe I'll take advantage of that later. Yeah, we could do another stream about that, and that'll be fun. Another thing I love about these random content generator tools in AD&D First Edition is that it performs a stable feedback loop when incorporated into the full game. Yeah, on the whole, absolutely. I think I even have to say that. It's like, yeah, there's going to be like small little exceptions here and there. Sometimes you're going to roll 6 empty rooms in a row, and this is going to be clearly undesirable. But. Okay, so I already have a lot of terrain here, like the terrain headers. But I don't know, so theoretically, I don't have to roll to figure out which one I'm going to use. But that's wrong. Because there's so much, there are 5,000 hexes on the, 50 wide by 100 tall. That's 5,000, right? I'm not insane? I'm pretty sure I'm not insane there. 2 zeros. Yeah, so we got 5,000 hexes here. So really, I should roll so that I can, at the very least, narrow down my search. And I'm pretty sure that Mike said, Mr. R-Dubs, I think it was a 7. Do you guys play with a don't know what's in the next hex, roll and find out? Don't know what's down that hole, roll and find out? Lots of that stuff makes it a feature-complete game and not a prompt for improv. Yes, I do. You know what? You're completely correct. It is correct. Anytime you roll... you run up against a blank space, you could say, fine. And then a better or worse group of people and a better or worse referee are going to kind of mix together there to determine how the quality and satisfaction resulting... One does nothing. Quality and satisfaction resulting from those. So what is a 7 on Appendix B? B. It's a pool. Or, well, it's a pond. Pools, tarns, and lakes. And bodies of water smaller than lakes do not exist here. Well, they do. The problem is they're not like listed on the map, with the exception of this place over here. So there's like the equivalent of, quote, the Great Lakes scattered all over this place for what I think are pretty good reasons, but... Need the terrain headers only. I wish I could actually see this without this stupid... I despise... this dumb little heart here. And terrain headers only on blank hex grid. Yes, theoretically, yes, but I have 5,000 hexes to choose from. So in order to narrow my search, I'm going to look now for the worst possible result I could have gotten, which is a pond. Because I have plenty of lakes marked on the map and small seas, and basically, like, how wide is a great width of Lake Michigan? Is 118 miles. Okay, so that's like 3? No, 4? No, more. Lake Huron is 183 across. That's nearly 10. That's less. 8? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's like 7.5. Yeah, there we go. That's like 7.5 hexes wide. So this is like larger than Lake Huron in that case. And then we have a few, and then we have some like 24-mile wide hexes and stuff like that. That's going to be adjusted with some of the... What scale are your hexes? Yep, so these are 24 miles across. Because these are... Yeah. They're 24 miles across each. That's something I did. I will not apologize for making a map the size of Chile. Wait, no, not Chile. Argentina. That's what I'm thinking of. Long. It is a big ass map. So the problem is, alright, now I'm stalling, so I'm just gonna roll again. Fine. Fine, okay? I don't know if anybody can see that. No, you can't see that on the map. Here, let me move my thing here. Let me just, I'm gonna... Ladies and gentlemen, observe. Can I like pop this out of the chat? No, what I think I can do is I could just like keep zooming in. Yeah, I get it. Jump to bottom. I don't know if you guys have noticed here in the chat, but I rolled 2 7s, which are both pond, which is a problem for me. What Hovenant was deadly. Interesting. Evelyn / Novelty. That is who? Oh, that's one of Fallen's characters, not the other one. Not the other Evelyn that blocked me in. East out, which was a shame. Oh, Ryan, if you ever see this, come back to the campaign. I didn't mean to be so harsh with you for saying dumb TikTok memes in the middle of the chat. Also, what the hell am I doing with this headphones on? This is not what I'm supposed to have right now. 1 second. Fancy Argentina should be more common. That place is huge. It means you have a very big lake. I do have a very big lake. It was paused. Why? I don't know. Anyways. At first I was looking up like the length of the... What is the width of the Mediterranean Sea? Ah, okay, so that's 1,600 miles across. Wait, no, that's 2,400 miles across. That's kilometers over there. Wait, eastern to western extent. So the extent, I believe, is like the furthest point, but the width is the... I assume the maximum contiguous width. That sounds right. That feels right, the way I'm describing it, but I don't... Can't necessarily commit to that. I had no idea that Italy was so close to Bosnia. It seems that feels so wrong to me. Ugh. was Constantinople? Anyways. We'll get rid of it. Yes, I rolled pawn twice, so I'm just going to pick a spot that's good for pawns. I'm going to go over to this forested area. We'll go to the Forest of Fire Dyer's Flare and say that there is a pawn somewhere. Pawn. Take it easy, everyone. I need to get back on the working sleep schedule. All right, I'll see you later, John. We're going to be done here in just a moment, but now it's time to roll. So, for Plane and Scrub, and you guys aren't going to be able to see this if my dumb face is in the way, so we're going to put that over there. D20 macro. There it is. I rolled a 3. We're rolling low today. A pond. A result of 3 for the pond is... Wait, no, I screwed up. I did screw up. I rolled mountains twice, actually. Because the header's pond isn't on the header. What am I thinking of? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so that would be mountain. So I rolled mountain for twice. Okay, well now I have to delete this. I rolled mountain, and then I got a 3. And 1 in 10 also includes hills. So if I roll another d20 and I happen to get a 2, I didn't. So this will just be a straight up mountain with a forest. Where do I have forested mountains? Well, I have them right over here. So maybe I'll do a little journal entry. I'll create a nice little map note. I have 2 different things for map pin. Oh, that's so annoying. We're just not gonna do that. We'll say say 1 d24, and I'm not even going to speculate as to what hex that is. It's fine, we're just going to make it here. Alright, can somebody please give me some Appendix B rolls? Type of settlement. So we have... this is one of the problems. This is one of the things I do not like, and this is one of the problems with playing a more quote modern game. Basically, every edition after AD&D drastically increases the hit points and general survivability of a lot of different critters running around, so that causes problems for us. Causes a lot of problems for us. Ruins 15, 60, yeah. So we have an 83% chance of being completely uninhabited. I don't like that. I don't think that there should be a 83% chance of being completely uninhabited. Or something like this. Alright, I got a 58, so that's completely uninhabited. Let's try another one. I had another 58, what are the odds? Uninhabited. 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 Okay, so we've got... Don't worry, guys. We're going to make it to March before we come across something that's inhabited. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll take longer. But then again, I'm using 24-mile hexes. So this is like... These could easily be, quote, unlucky rolls. If we're using 5-mile hexes. So what are people to do? Do I include instructions in Dungeon 24? Include instructions for 24-mile hexes? Do I include some tips as to, like, hey, if you get, like, more than, like, let's say you get more than 3 uninhabited results, the next one has to be inhabited somehow? I think I could do that. I think that'd be fine. There we go. So it took us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. On result 9, we finally got something that was inhabited, and it was a single dwelling. It was a single dwelling. Question, and Pierce, you could probably answer this. Where do you determine whether or not a location actually has a dungeon? Is that on Appendix B? Is that where you determine that you have a 24-mile hexes are mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. Yeah, they sure are. Let's see. Not everybody can play at this level. Seriously, somebody needs to tell me shrines and tombs are dungeons. Okay, thank you. So, I've gotten... On my 9th result, I got a single dwelling. Huh. Cities can also make sense, but, you know. I'm gonna figure out, so I got a single dwelling for this place. See Castle Tables, Appendix C. Well, I better go look at that. Or populations. That's level 2, Dragon Subtable, Underwater Encounters, did I... Ooh. Let's see here. Psychic Wind. Astral and Ethereal Encounters. Thing. Uninhabited areas are not all wilderness. There'll be small settlements and a few strongholds scattered about. If the roll of d20 indicates that there is a fortress in the area, the party will be in visual range of construction. A half mile to 5 miles, depending on terrain considerations. Castle type, the master of the stronghold, his or her forces, and the castle's awareness of the party are treated below. Interesting. Outdoor random monster encounters. Uninhabited areas will occasionally have fortresses. When see here, 1 in 20 is an encounter which discovers such a stronghold. These are also detailed hereafter. If you're not using the random terrain method for discovery of ruins, check by rolling percentile dice on that table nonetheless. Check only when an encounter is indicated, however. If ruins are indicated, then the encounter will occur there, and if the monster is not appropriate to the setting, check the rough terrain column to find a result. That's interesting. There's a lot of different conditionals here. They can be a lot of fun. I think they could also be a lot of fun. It's just not a matter of... I'm confused here because I'm just not familiar enough with these tables. I probably missed it at this point. So where we determine the population. For appendix B, yeah, we have 1 to 12. Oh, I get it. Okay, wait, no. Crap, maybe I don't get it. No, I don't think I do. See, 1 to 12 could just be like roll a d12, and then 20 to 80 could be, I would guess, is like 2d4 times 10. 100 to 400 is a d4 times 100. 600 to 900, what would that be then? Yeah. Castles see castle tables, but ruins don't have a population to them. They have bad people in them, so okay. I'm not actually rolling in this case. Chance for castles 1.5% on the regular table. Yeah. But you can, the thing is, you could keep checking for a castle while you're outside and doing random encounters. Yeah, it's a lot of like random no results though. That's a really large amount of random no results. If I'm doing, here's the thing, if I'm doing 24-mile hexes, I have to, and I think I have to put this advice in the chat here, or in the description for 5 to 6 mile hexes. I don't know why people say 5 mile hexes. I always thought they were 6 mile hexes, but whatever. 6 mile hexes. If you're doing 6 mile hexes, you'll do this. If you're doing 24 mile hexes, you'll do this instead. And I guess yeah. It'll be up to that person whether which they're doing from week to week. So I'm gonna have to make another. We're gonna have to duplicate this page here and talk about hex sizes. You're following Appendix B. If you're 6. Choose the result. What if I just do that? These small hexes are a BX conspiracy. Okay, so one option is that the table does. So the table. Let's see here. What's a Nixie? Oh, okay. What's a Nixad? I run up here. Okay. All right. I get it now. I get it. So for type of settlement, something you can do is you could just roll 1d20. And funnily enough, I rolled a d20 and I just got uninhabited. So maybe the entire thing is whatever. If I get a 14, what does that give me? I get a castle. All right, there's a castle here, and that would have to go through and do results. A bunch of different options here, and let's say I roll 1d4 to determine 2. I get a 2. What does a 2 give me for what's my motivation? The dungeon contains a lost army, NPC, or population from this hex. What dungeon is that going to be? Yeah, so I think I need to give people, basically, if you're doing 24-mile hexes, what you do is you... Yeah, there we go, switching. Okay, so if you're doing a 6-mile hex, you're gonna... You're rolling Appendix B. Roll as per appendix. Rolls per appendix B. The prior 3 results were uninhabited. 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 Roll 1d20 for inhabitation instead. For 24-mile hexes, you're just gonna roll 1d20. Roll 1d20 for inhabitation, ignoring results above 20. I probably just... Place result. Treat the remaining. Treat the remaining hexes as uninhabited. Okay, I think that's mostly good enough. So I have, let's see here, the dungeon contains a lost army, NPC, or population from this hex. The dungeon the players have been exploring so far is Myrmidia. So what kind of NPC or population is sitting over here? The elves or dwarves? Is it humans? I feel like this is more of like a dwarf area. The dungeon that the players are in right now is dwarven, so maybe that would work. The castle. What does it get me? Oh, I have so many options here. Definitely want to do elves. Pairing Sylvan settings. Interesting. Oh, I can do... Cool. So castle size and inhabitants, so I could just do another D100. 70 brings us to what? That will depend on the size of the castle, so I just treat 70 as my roll here? Maybe. Yeah, alright, we'll treat 70 as the first roll then. And 59 is the second, so 70 brings us to... It's a medium-sized walled castle with a keep, and 59 brings us to what? Medium. It's humans. Okay. So what did humans way over here lose in a dungeon way over here? We have a short list. A lost army, NPC, or population from that X. Apparently we're reconnected. I think that there was an NPC lost from that X. We went to this one. Maybe it was a lost human. Was it a wizard? Nah, I think it was like a lost human here or something. Yep, I think it's going to be a lost human hero, so I'll mark that down. Connection, dungeon. Let's see if it's a lost human hero, perhaps. This dungeon is themed around mermaids. Maybe this guy fell in love with a mermaid and, I don't know, got tossed into suspended animation so that he never grew old and died. He was sequestered. The hero was sequestered by a mermaid. Okay, and that's all I need to write down right now. Really should have prepped this in advance, but that's probably fine for now. And honestly, this is definitely something that I could finish. Yeah, so like the full instructions, is that going to be terribly complicated? Yeah, it might be. We're gonna start off with just like generate a hex using Appendix B, roll for terrain type 1d8, subtype 1d20, and inhabitation, which is 1d100. Note one connection with an existing dungeon room. Create a room with Appendix A if you don't have a room ready or one spares. If you roll or place a new dungeon on the map, it must connect. Share connection with your next generated hex. Alright, last question is how often should people do this? But we don't know. I don't know. We're going to stop the stream here. Thank you folks for joining in. This was entertaining. I will see you later.